Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started now. We have you for the next 60 minutes, so we'll go until 10 minutes after noon. And don't worry, your lunch won't spoil or anything, so please stick with us for the full 60. So this is Enabling People-Centric IT. My name is Andrew Conway. I'm a Director of Product Marketing in the Server and Tools Division at Microsoft. And today our goal is really to give you an end-to-end overview of the People-Centric IT solution. It's really a deep dive into what you saw in probably the first 15 minutes of Brad's keynote just now. We have a pretty demo-heavy session, so I'm joined here by some of my colleagues who will actually get us hands-on with the technology. So with that, I'll get going. Just to set context for our People-Centric IT solution, it really begins for us with the cloud operating system, or the cloud OS as we call it, which is our vision at Microsoft in the Server and Tools Division, really for the future of computing in the enterprise. And it's grounded in a consistent model across three clouds. That starts with Windows Azure and our public cloud, as you saw today, but also covers your customer clouds or private clouds, what you're doing in your own data center, and then also service provider clouds as well. And so if you're using a hoster or a third-party service provider to deliver services, our vision here is to have a consistent platform on which to deliver solutions, infrastructure, data, and apps across these three clouds with consistent elements across development environment, management with System Center, data, identity, and virtualization. And there are really four solutions that sit on top of that cloud operating system. And obviously, we'll drill into People-Centric IT today. But some of the other ones here, transforming the data center. So I think we've all recognized cloud and the sort of transition to cloud as a key trend in IT. Really the shift from the individual server being the design point for applications, and really that becoming the entire data center fabric or the entire cloud. And really the need for you to deliver a generational shift in scalability, agility, SLAs, the things that you are tasked with delivering to your business unit owners and end users. On top of that infrastructure, a whole new set of applications, often mobile, written for many different device types now, so very heterogeneous environment on the client side, and then connecting to backends either hosted in your data center or in Azure. And if you think about these modern applications, what's different here is there's more complexity in terms of how these applications interact with other applications, how they share data, and then also how your users are interacting with those applications as well. So applications that are increasingly social and cross-connected across the base of individuals that are using them. And because of that, we've seen just an epic growth in the amount of data that's being thrown off. And so I think everyone has heard about the trend of big data, data that's not just living now in say, SQL databases or relational stores, but just a lot of unstructured data that companies are grappling with, but then at the same time finding new insight. And then finally, People-Centric IT, this consumerization trend, this so-called BYOD, or to some degree, just BYO everything, frankly, trend of individuals, end users, who over the last few years as consumers have really experienced an embarrassment of riches in terms of developments in device technology around battery life, around touch, mobility, a persistent internet connection through the cellular network, and then combined with a set of consumer cloud services which increasingly allow them to get their work done. And it's really this intersection between these experiences as consumers and the enterprise context or the business environment, which is what we're talking about today. But I know that you guys are expecting more than a vision today. You actually want us to ground this in the product reality. So what I wanted to do was a quick recap of sort of where we've been at Microsoft over the last year or so, the most recent releases that we've had across the systems management portfolio with Config Manager, and then also Windows Server. So this really began for us a little over a year ago in April of 2012 with the 2012 release of Config Manager. Very big shift from us from prior versions. The whole product was really re-architected around a user-centric design point. And we brought a whole new set of capability into Config Manager called Application Management, which is the ability to target apps not to devices, but to end users. And then to target it to the devices that those end users have, sensitive to the device that they're on at that time, the capabilities of that device, the network location of that device. Is it joined to CorpNet at the time? Is it across a cellular connection, whatever it is? What's the best way to get that app out to the end user? And in the application management capability, you may have many different app types for different devices, and you have the ability to target those in a logical way down to the devices that the users may be operating on at that time. We also brought device management just via the Exchange ActiveSync connector into the product, into the management experience of Config Manager at that time. We followed that very shortly in June last year with an Intune release that brought app sideloading for a range of heterogeneous devices. So we actually showed at our management conference sideloading of iOS apps, which I think surprised a number of people given that we're Microsoft, but was really the beginning of our commitment here to be heterogeneous across devices. And then as we headed into the fall last year, a very significant new release of Windows Server that I'm hoping a number of you have had the chance to start to work with and experience. The 2012 release brought really significant improvements across remote desktop services, or VDI, that's covering VDI, remote app, session host, and also improvements in the remote desktop protocol itself as well, with improved performance, especially over wide area networks and the internet, better video streaming capability, support for USB redirection, etc. And we also showed some of the information protection capabilities that you saw in the keynote today. So things like dynamic access control and the ability to have policy against a file server, against a particular share, if you wish, and then to have policy and information protection access right decisions made around not just things that you decide, but also the classification of the files themselves. So the ability to scan files for particularly sensitive terms or sensitive pieces of information, and then being able to make automatic policy decisions there based on the user's account in Active Directory, the group that they're in, etc., what device they're coming in from. The wave that we're talking about now, though, really began with our SP1 and Intune release back in December. This was the first time that we unified Windows Intune and Config Manager together. So we brought Intune into Config Manager like it was just another site server in your infrastructure, manage.microsoft.com. And we included data from the Intune service and all of the devices that were being managed from that cloud service in the same console experience, the ability to take action against those devices, the ability to do reporting, look at inventory, manage settings, etc. We also brought direct management for Windows RT, Windows Phone, and iOS, and we increased our support for Mac OS X PCs. Now as we head into preview with the on-premises bits being available today, you can see that we've aligned releases, as Brad noted today, across this set of products, really just in the space of less than a year. And so we'll be shipping by the end of this calendar year the R2 release of Config Manager 2012, the same for Windows Server 2012, and then the next big set of updates to the Windows Intune service. And this is really what we will dive into today. But before I do that, I wanted to show you a quick video of one of our customers in the UK, Aston Martin, who've actually been using our unified device management capabilities already with Config Manager and Windows Intune. So let me just roll this video.
Aston Martin is all about power, beauty and soul. There's an understated elegance of what we actually produce. Our aim is to provide perfection to our customers, and we do that, and we do it incredibly well. And what I need to deliver from an IT perspective is exactly the same. I need to be able to offer them the power. I need to be able to offer them a beautiful solution, and I need to put my heart and soul into that to ensure that what we produce are beautiful colours. As an IT department, we have to offer a service to the organisation, and that service is changing incredibly quickly. We now have the ability to make them change the way they are working, to help them innovate, to help them be more communicative, to give them the information that they need.
We now have the ability to use some cloud technology like Intune, which connects beautifully into a system center.
People are very, very mobile nowadays, and they expect to be mobile, and they expect to take their devices with them. They also expect to get every piece of information at any point, at any time, and I'm confident now that I can provide that.
What System Center has allowed us to do, in conjunction with products like Intune, is to be able to provide the security and governance that we need to feel confident that our intellectual property is safe, it's secure, and it's not going to fall into the wrong hands.
We've been able to simplify our IT operations with Intune through the unified device management platform that Intune provides in conjunction with Configuration Manager. The software portal in Intune are vital to our users. They're able to self-service and get the applications and support they require.
What I want to do with Azure, what I want to do with Office 365, what I want to do with Intune is to enable the decision makers to make their decisions and make them quickly and make them with the right information in their pockets.
Okay, so that's Aston Martin, who's been using the unified solution now with Intune and Config Manager. As we think about consumerization of IT, though, and our solution with people-centric IT, it does begin with users. And as Brad noted today, what we're seeing is a massive growth in the number of smart device shipments. And so if you add PCs, tablets, and smartphones together, you're looking at something around 1.2 billion devices a year. And what that means is that the average user in a developed market is probably using somewhere between 5 and 7 different internet-connected devices. So we really have no choice from a systems management, from an app delivery, an app lifecycle point of view, but to manage at that design point of the user versus the device. And so we see this device proliferation. Obviously, the device operating system environment is by its nature heterogeneous. And I think all of us now are grappling with choices that we make about devices coming into the enterprise. We also have a war for talent going on. And as we have people new to the workforce that have grown up with the internet, they've grown up, always been connected on these devices, they have a different set of expectations about when and where they should be able to work, and the blurring between work time and non-work time. And as we talk to customers and partners, as we do briefings and as we meet with customers through our early adopter programs and in our briefing centers, the thing that this really begins with, once you go beyond corporate email, is really the applications. We see customers now making decisions around, for a particular set of apps, both sort of the head end of applications, the big apps that people use, where a lot of your users use them, all the way down into the long tail. What decisions are you going to make around how you deliver those apps out to end users? Are you going to rewrite the client side of those applications? Are you going to container those applications, maybe in a session, on session host, or using something like VDI if the data is particularly critical and you want to container it in the data center? But what are the choices that you make around the application lifecycle based on the user, based on the role that they have? You may make very different decisions based on, say, customer service or frontline salespeople than you would for financial analysts, based on their role, based on the interactions they have, the devices that they need to use, etc. And then finally, this growth in data associated with these applications and the fact that data now is out in this very distributed environment on different device types, where the application data may be written into different stores, you're not quite sure what's going on. You've basically increased the surface area from an information protection or a data leakage prevention point of view. And so you should be looking for a vendor that really is thinking hard about solving these information protection problems. And these are difficult to solve. These are not trivial problems to solve in a very distributed environment. As we think about Microsoft's solution in this space, we're going to talk about it today really in 3 big areas. The first is empowering those users. What are the capabilities that you can make available to users on devices that they choose, that you are fine with from a compliance point of view, and then the choices you make about app delivery out onto those devices. Through the IT Pro lens, though, I think the last thing you need is another set of point solutions or disconnected tools. And so we've spent time on unifying the environment, especially for configuration manager customers today. Configuration manager is on a huge percentage of the enterprise desktops out there. It's really the de facto tool for PC management. And so we spent a lot of time unifying our device management with PC management through Config Manager. And then finally, as I noted, protecting data, making sure that you can protect that corporate information, manage information risk, while at the same time helping folks be productive. And so to get really specific now on what's coming in this new release, the first thing is company portal experiences across all device types. So you saw today in the keynote a company portal experience on Windows. You would expect us to have one of those on Windows, Windows RT, Windows Phone. We also will have those on iOS and Android, and we'll get into that a little bit today. A simplified experiences for your users to register with the corporate, to register with IT, and into the directory. And so this is both at the level of registering into AD for access to applications, but then also a simplified enrollment experience into the management service. And then finally, automatic connections to internal resources. So for instance, if a particular application, a modern application, needs a VPN to connect back to your data center, then the ability for that VPN connection to be automatically sparked up so that your users have the most frictionless way to get access to apps and resources. And so just to drill to the next level of detail here, again, as we noted today at the keynote level, it really starts with the users, their devices, and making them known into AD. We've also extended AD now to the cloud with Windows Azure AD. That's not Microsoft's directory, that's your directory. You make the choices about the data that you want to sync into that directory and how you want to deal with authentication decisions, what attributes you want to keep up there. And then from a management tools point of view, a similar thing. We've extended our on-premises assets to the cloud with Windows Intune. But as you move beyond just the business of figuring out what's in your environment, doing inventory, managing settings, it really is about giving access to applications. And you can see we have solutions here that cross remote desktop, both VDI and Windows Client, and then Session Host and Remote App. And we have a new set of capabilities that are coming into Windows Server in the R2 release around publishing on-premise applications. So new features in the remote access role with capabilities like web application proxy, and new capabilities in both AD and ADFS, Active Directory Federation services, around handling authentication decisions at the edge for access to apps that run in your data center. So with that, I'd like to bring up Paul Mayfield, who's one of our partner program managers at Microsoft, and he'll take you through that end user experience on a set of devices now. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Mayfield, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the new end-user experiences that we've enabled in the coming wave of releases later this year. These end-user experiences empower users to get to their apps and their data from any location and on any of their devices. Earlier in the keynote, one of our colleagues, Adam, demonstrated the experience for enrolling and registering a device into Active Directory and into Windows Intune. The ability to register and enroll these devices is a new capability that we're bringing later this year. And it allows an end user to get their device provisioned and to opt into IT services. It allows an IT professional to know what are the devices that are in the environment, what are the users that are using those devices, and what are they accessing. So together they provide a great benefit both to the end user and to the IT pro. I have here a device which is a Surface device similar to the one that Adam was demonstrating in the keynote. It has already been enrolled in the management service, Windows Intune, and has already been registered in Active Directory. And as a result, all of the certificates and Wi-Fi profiles and VPN profiles and settings and sideloading keys, everything this device needs to be up and productive in my environment is now set out from the internet. So you can think of this as a kind of domain join for a personal device to make it effective and able to be used for work. So this device is ready to go. For example, you can see if we look at the network configuration, I have 2 VPN profiles that were pushed down through the service onto this device. You can even configure applications to automatically launch these VPN connections transparent to the user when they're a line of business app and need that access to the data back in the company headquarters. But let's go ahead and show the company portal experience that Andrew had alluded to in his presentation. We have here a set of applications that have been targeted to me as the user. These can be side-loaded applications. They can be web applications or software as a service applications. They can also be deep links into public company stores. One example of an application here is the My Expenses app, which we'll go ahead and install. You'll notice that there is a notification in the upper corner letting us know that that's underway. While that's, and it looks like it already completed. We also have a section here where I can see the other devices that have been registered and enrolled for me as a user, and there's actions I can take that are specific to the device. So here's a desktop device. I could connect to that remotely using RDS. Here's an iPad device. I can rename it, remove it from management, or even remotely wipe it. If we come back out and look at the applications, you'll see that the My Expenses app has arrived, and we can pin it to the start. Now it shows up here. Back at the company portal, there's one other function that's available, which is the ability to configure work folders. So down here, I will click on that, and we will get an experience where I can start to set this up. Now, we for a long time had the ability to use SkyDrive Pro or SharePoint Online to provide collaboration and access to files across any device and any location. What's coming new in this fall is the ability to also provide access to file shares. And that's what Work Folders is all about. So I will come in here and enter in my username information. Click Next. I got a typo on that? Okay. Wait for that to time out here. And what's going to happen is this device will speak to the back-end file server and will discover what is the location where my, cancel out of that. What's the location where my files are located? Okay, I'll do that one more time. Does that look right now? Okay. Okay, it finds my work folders this time. I'm again asked if I would agree to IT controls, like allowing these files to be encrypted. So when the files will eventually sync down to this device, they'll be put in a folder which is encrypted separate from the rest of the machine. Also a folder where when I remove this device from management later, it will remove access to those encryption keys and I won't be able to access those work files any longer. I will go ahead and accept that. And now Work Folders is set up. So you can see actually that we have already begun the sync and we have apps that have made their way down, or excuse me, data that has made its way down. I can go ahead and launch PowerPoint now. And we will create a new document, and this will be our TechEd demo document. And one of the great things about Work Folders is you can integrate the work folder capability with the new dynamic access control capability that's in Windows Server 2012. This allows you to have a policy on the file server that says whenever someone puts confidential information tagged by these keywords, for example, go ahead and provide additional encryption on that file. Wrap it in an RMS envelope. So if I put here is some top secret confidential information and then save this file into my work folders, we'll come back out here and notice that the file has been created in the work folders folder. And that file is now syncing up to the file server and will also sync over to any other devices that I have enrolled for work folders as well. And I have one of those. Let me switch over. Nilesh, which one of these do I want to switch over to? Yeah. Is it the first one? This is the one here? Oh, that's the server. Nope. Well, did I double click it? Okay. So here's my other client. This is a virtual machine representing the computer back at my office. You can see the TechEd 1 demo file has synced over. And if I open that, you'll see that you'll notice there's verbiage here that my computer is being configured for information rights management. That's because when we had that confidential information in the file that we created on my personal device, when it went through the server to come over to this other device, it automatically got classified as a high-impact file and was encrypted with additional RMS protection. This makes it so that if this file is ever copied out to a local file share or a public cloud file service, it still contains that encryption and wrapping, and I won't be able to open that file if my administrator on the server ever revokes access to it. So coming back to my original device, I can now complete the cycle of demo here on this device by saying I'm going to get a new device. Okay, good. So I can go back to the original experience we had where we enrolled the device. I can decide that I am done managing the device. I'm going to repurpose it, maybe give it to my kids to play with now, and I'm, as a result, going to leave my workplace and turn off the management. As a result, my access to the files that were out here in the work folders has been revoked. I don't have the keys, and if I try to launch this TechEd document, I'll be given an access denied message that will let me know I can't get it anymore. And if I come back to my start screen, you'll notice that that additional expenses file that we downloaded earlier has also been selectively removed. But all of the personal information, personal photos, etc., is still on this device, and it can just be handed off at this point. Now, what we've shown so far has been getting a device up and provisioned, getting access to apps, and getting access to data. The one final thing we want to show is that this isn't just about a Windows solution. We support other devices as well. And to that end, I have an iPad to show. Okay. I can log into the iPad, and I have an email here from my administrator telling me that I can register this device in the Active Directory as well. So that workplace join and that enrollment and management that we did on the Windows device, we can do that on an iOS device as well, and you'll be able to go into your Active Directory, see here are all of the iOS devices in the environment, here are the users using them. So I will go ahead and type in my credentials here as well. Hopefully you didn't watch my password as it typed there. I will be asked then to confirm that I am who I claim to be and not just someone who has my password. And I do that by hitting this continue for phone factor. And you can see that what's happened is my phone is ringing. I will answer that.
Thank you for using Microsoft's sign-in verification system. Press the pound key to finish signing in. You
Okay.
have been signed in. Goodbye.
So with that, my device has been able to register in the Active Directory. I am asked to install a profile here, which will result in getting my certificates installed. Okay. And while that's going on, I am about to be in a position now on this iPad where I'm able to access my company resources and settings as well. This takes just a moment for the handshaking to occur between the device and our cloud services. You can see the certificate is now enrolling. And the profile is installing. Okay. We're all set up now. Brings me back to the website, and I can be off and running. We have a company portal experience that works for the iPad as well. You can see again here I have access to my devices back at work. I can change the properties. I've got my registered iPad here as well. The same actions that were available on the Surface are now available on the iOS device as well. And the same information to contact my IT is available, and it's integrated with the phone and the email on the device. I can click to install applications, and I'll be taken to a web portal where the applications that have been provisioned for me, and I will, oops, sorry about that. Will be listed here. And this time it's showing me the appropriate applications from my IT department that have been targeted to me on iOS devices. Here's the iOS version of the expense app, which I can go ahead and install. And while we wait for that to happen in the background, well, I'll give this just a second. This will trigger the cloud service to send the application down. While we wait for that, I'll come over and show you that in addition to having the side-loaded application, you can also show applications that are available in public stores, like the Skype application here. Oops. Oh, looks like we're having a network issue to the store. So what we've been able to show here is a pretty comprehensive set of capabilities to allow end users to opt into IT services, get their devices registered in the Active Directory in the management system, get access to the certificates, profiles, settings, and applications they need, and to their data. And we do this across all devices. This is our vision for how we empower users. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and look at it through the IT pro lens versus the end user lens, and talk through some of the new capabilities that we have coming in this R2 wave. And so we've talked about Config Manager and our market-leading solution there for PC management, now extended with Windows Intune for cloud management of devices, managing devices where they live. Simplified user-centric app management, so the ability to target those apps based on those AD credentials and do that across a range of devices now. So it's not about having to target to a particular device. You target to that user, and you have a set of rules around which app packages will show up in those portal experiences for a particular user on the device that they're on. Also, we're bringing comprehensive settings management in this next release. Some of you may be looking at point solutions today that just aren't integrated. What I'm going to ask you today is to basically take a look at Intune with Config Manager. And we will have comprehensive settings management across Windows devices, so that's RT and phone, and also across Android and iOS. And then finally, all of this is based on a common identity platform that stretches from your on-premise AD investments into the cloud with Windows Azure AD. So to get specific there again, this is about having a single admin experience that brings together both the on-premises and the cloud experience. It's about not just that settings management, but that initial enrollment as well that you saw. This ability to get that device provisioned for corporate use. So when the enrollment happens, things like certificates, VPN profiles, wireless network settings that you need for, say, your Wi-Fi environment at work, all get pushed down to the device. And then it's about that application lifecycle that's associated with that user, the apps that they want, targeted to them, again, based on their credentials. And so with that, I'd like to bring up Nilesh, who's going to take us through the IT Pro experience in Config Manager with Intune. Thank you, Nilesh.
Thank you, Andrew. So today I'm going to show the IT Pro magic. So we saw Paul showing the IW productivity experiences, and I'm going to cover the IT Pro magic to set that experience up. So let me switch over to my VM here. Okay. So I have configuration manager console here. Let me just switch over to that machine, and then let's start this demo. I want to talk about the experience that IT Pro is going to get in order to make the end users productive. I want you to take away two acronyms here, Super UDM. Basically, how do you provision this access to end users through Configuration Manager and Intune? The first acronym is Super. The S stands for subscription. You start out with provisioning Windows Intune subscription. One thing that you do is go to the administration node, and under administration node, we have some cloud services provisioned as part of the R2 release of Configuration Manager. So if you look at the properties, you will see the collection of users. This is a Windows Intune user collection. These are the set of users that you have synced from your on-prem AD to the Azure AD. So this is one setup step that is common across most of the Microsoft Online Services platforms. So you have to do this step only once for your on-prem AD, and these users are available for you across services like Windows Intune, Office 365, and so on. The second letter in the acronym is users, so we covered that. The third letter is platforms, P for platforms. So you can choose which platforms you want to manage for allowing these BYO devices into your CarpNet. So you can see that there are platform-specific configurations that you can do here. For instance, for Windows RT, you need to provide a code signing certificate as well as the side loading keys to install applications on these platforms. Then we can look at the end user experience that Paul showed as part of the self-service portal. You can set the branding information for your company as well as the IT contact information, so that if end user needs IT help, they can get it through the company portal. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about, the setting up the access, is resource access. So as part of the R2 release, we have a new node provisioned in the admin console. It's called Company Resource Access. This is where IT admins can provision VPN profiles, Wi-Fi profiles, and certificates for mobile devices, and PCs as well. So let's take a look at how they can provision a VPN profile for these end user devices. I'm going to call this VPN profile TechEd Europe, just a demo. Quickly looking at this, you can see now in this release we support third-party vendor profiles as well. This is not just about Microsoft VPNs, but we cover major VPN vendors. You can see Cisco, Juniper, F5, Dell Sonic, all these vendors are now covered. So we have a pretty comprehensive story for deploying VPN profiles here. One thing that I'm going to select VPN profile with Microsoft Automatic settings right now. I will add quickly a friendly name, provide an IP address here, and quickly navigate to the next setting that I'm going to talk about, that we are introducing a new feature as part of this release. It's called On-Demand VPN. So what it does is, based on a typical set of DNS suffixes, you can trigger a VPN. So for instance, on a mobile device, you're running an application which is a line of business application, and that needs to access some corporate resources. You specify those domains like contoso.com, and it will automatically trigger the VPN on your mobile device. And there is one more feature which is part of this release. It's called the application triggered VPN. So you can basically say that your modern application, that for instance we saw the expenses application, or an MSI based application, when it launches, it can also trigger the VPN. So this is the new functionality in the R2 release. There are a couple of things that you can do to provision the Wi-Fi profiles as well. So when you bring your device into CarpNet, these Wi-Fi profiles are already there as part of the management experience, and so the iPads or Surface Pros can immediately connect to your corporate Wi-Fi using this. As part of the certificate profiles, we can allow different types of certificates to be installed on these devices. We use the SCEP protocol to provision these unique certificates on the mobile devices. You can also use application signing certificates, and you can deploy them through Configuration Manager, and we take care of the side loading keys as well. So it's a pretty comprehensive resource access functionality. So we saw how we can provision Intune subscription, provide end-user experience, define the set of users that you want to give access to bring their devices into CorpNet, and how do you set up those devices using resource access. So next acronym is the UDM. This is where we are going to talk about the Unified Device Management Experience. So let's go over to the Assets and Compliance node here, and let's look at the users that are managed into the system. These are all users that we synced from your local AD. Let's try to find Paul's user ID there. You can see Paul is a registered user here. I can look at quickly the devices that Paul is associated with. As part of this release, there is a new functionality that we have added. It's called a device ownership, because when these new devices come into CorpNet network, we need to distinguish between personal devices versus Corp-owned devices. This is very important when you want to inventory software from these devices. There are strict privacy laws in Europe, and we have heard from our customers, so that today, if you bring in a personal device, we will only inventory the software that IT deployed on those machines, as opposed to everything that is on their machine. You can use this construct of device ownership to target different set of softwares. You can do the conditional rule install as well. And based on the device ownership property, we'll get different inventory levels. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is applications. In Configuration Manager 2012, we introduced application models. So the main benefit of this model is there are so many platforms and so many different types of applications are coming in. It's no longer the story where you can just standardize the PC and install MSI. For instance, in this case, let's look at the Skype application, and let's drill down to the deployment types here. There are multiple deployment types. Based on the platform, you can install Skype from iTunes Store or Android Store or Windows Store, and you can have an MSI-based install for Windows 7 based machines also. So we give a very convenient way for IT admins to manage all these different types of deployments for Skype in one place and just manage it as one single application. So from end users' perspective, they have Skype. They don't have to look for, I need to have Skype for Android or iOS. They just go to your company portal and get the application that they need. So it's a pretty powerful functionality from Unified Device Management. So one thing that you have noticed, I'm using a standard set of PC workflows, and we have extended them to mobile device management also. There is no separate console to deal with. There is no confusion there. So we basically provide you the single pane of glass without the pain of managing different consoles and infrastructure. Your Windows Intune just extends the management functionality and distribution point functionality into the cloud, and we take care of that management point as well. The last thing that I'm going to conclude this demo with is settings. Because mobile device management needs a lot of setting management, and so we have a pretty comprehensive set of settings available in this release. So I'm going to do a quick CI configuration here. I'm going to select mobile devices settings, and you can see there are lots of different categories of settings now available. I'm going to pick a few to just demonstrate my point, and you can see actually I'm going to select the additional settings as well. So in this release, we have basically provisioned, for instance, the cloud settings can cover iOS syncing back to iCloud, and you can prohibit or restrict or also allow based on your company policies. We can configure your work folder settings as well, so that end users can get up and running right from the beginning when they provision their machine for management. And as part of the additional settings, you will see the list of comprehensive settings that we have. We have 100+ settings added in this release of Configuration Manager R2. They're available across different platforms. From IT admin perspective, you don't have to worry about which settings are available on which platform because it gets very confusing. You can just use a common model to author these settings. As part of the deployment, you get the report of which settings are applicable on what platforms. So we make it very easy for you to manage those settings. So with that, we have seen how Configuration Manager admin can provision resource access and applications for end users, and how we provide a single pane of glass functionality for end users without the pain of managing different infrastructures and consoles. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nilesh. So all of your PC and device management in one place there. And so for the final pillar here, we're going to spend some time on protecting data, information protection, data leakage prevention, whatever you want to call it. And in the 2012 release, 2012 R2 release of Server, we're really building on technologies like DAC and now offering the ability to give policy-based access control through the remote access role to corporate apps and data that you have in your data center. We're also increasing security through support for multi-factor auth. The solution is extensible. Today we showed you phone factor. That's just one of the options that you have for adding in a multi-factor solution around an initial authentication decision, maybe the act of registering a device into the domain. You could require that in an app-specific way, though, as well. And then once you've registered a device into the domain, you could use that as a second factor. And so you have the options around information protection. And then finally, the ability to selectively wipe away or render inaccessible corporate data that's been brought down onto the device, or corporate applications that have been installed on the device via the self-service company portal experiences. I think we've all experienced having a device completely wiped, and maybe we've lost some personal information, maybe personal photos, or whatever it is. And so this is the ability to selectively remove corporate apps, corporate data, when you unenroll from the management service. And so this solution is built around, again, a very user-centric approach. We have a number of options available through remote desktop services and our desktop virtualization capabilities. But we also now have the ability to publish data to devices and applications to devices through the remote access role in WinServer 2012 R2 with new features like the web application proxy, support for multi-factor authentication, and the ability to centrally audit policies and combine this access and data sharing with existing features of Windows Server like dynamic access control. And so with that, I'd like to bring up Sam. He's going to take you through some of the policy setting experiences now against AD and Active Directory Federation services. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning. So we've seen a series of experiences associated with making users productive, as well as thinking about IT risk management. Now, I'm going to focus on a few of the IT experiences associated with thinking about how do you get access for these users to these resources, as well as thinking about the setup experiences associated with making these resources available to end users, as well as protecting them. So to begin with, by the way, I'm Sam, and I'm from the Active Directory team. So a lot of our focus in this release of Windows Server was enhancing the support for how end users can authenticate and be authorized to access resources. So I'm going to begin right now by looking at the Active Directory Federation Services console and showcasing some of the enhancements that we've made here. So I'm going to begin by really focusing on how do you manage authentication. Now, one of the key things that admins think about is we've kind of made this a two-step process. You first authenticate with something with your Active Directory credentials, and then you decide as part of, on a per application basis, you make the decision whether you need multi-factor authentication. So let's take a quick look at what the primary authentication has. These are simple controls for the admin to differentiate policies between inside the corporate network and outside the corporate network. But I want to bring your attention to the lower part of the screen where we've got a simple checkbox that says Enable Device Authentication. Now, that simple checkbox is a powerful phenomenon for managing risk. This is what that prompts Active Directory to say, hey, I'm going to now start looking and asking for the certificates associated with workplace join. Now, this is a key concept that offers the following three key benefits. The first is thinking about single sign-on and making end users productive. People really find it difficult to keep signing in and constantly entering the usernames and passwords. The fact that we know it is you, the user, from a device that was registered to you, gives us the ability to say, based on admin policy, we can provide much longer-lived sessions to access a category of applications. Now, the second key aspect is you saw the fact that we workplace joined you using an alternate multi-factor credential. Now, as a result, you've got a user's credential in addition to a certificate that represents a user-at-device relationship. That implies that it is a seamless multi-factor credential. This happens underneath the covers. So as a result, it is seamless productivity for the end user as well as security for IT. The final benefit associated with this is what we call as conditional access. Now, the fact that we can recognize this device implies that you can constrain access to resources only to devices that is known by your organization. So when you are providing access to, let's say, a set of resources that you want to access even from the internet, this gives you the ability to say, hey, I'm not going to allow access from any device, but only devices known to my organization. Now, moving forward, and so as you can see, I briefly mentioned the fact that you can now, that was the first stage of authentication. Now, on a per application basis, I can actually request additional authentication for the sensitive applications. In this case, let's assume that it is SharePoint. I click Edit Multi-Factor Authentication, and I have some simple controls to say, based on what condition do I want to ask for additional authentication. So this gives you the ability to say it's based on a user group, or it's based on location, which can be, let's say, all extranet access, or the fact that it might be coming from a device that is not known to me. So this gives you, the admins, the ability to control access and asks for a higher level of authentication for the set of apps that you are, that you really require this. Now, so that concludes really thinking about a brief glimpse in terms of how you control from an AD perspective, how you control authenticating to a resource and how you are granted access to a resource. Now, moving forward, at the keynote earlier, you saw Adam showing access to a SharePoint application. Now, that application lived inside my firewall. Now, with Windows Server 2012 R2, we provided a new service, which is an HTTP proxying service. We call it the web application proxy that lives in the remote access rule. Now you have all of your edge-based components under the remote access rule. It's VPN, direct access, as well as web application proxy that is inbox in Windows Server to provide you with an edge solution. Now, this web application proxy works in conjunction with Active Directory Federation services to provide the appropriate support. So let's take a quick look at this. Right now, I'm at the Remote Access Management console. We already saw the SharePoint application that was published. Now, let me go through a quick publishing experience. Now, as I mentioned, you can pre-authenticate access to these resources at the edge. And all the policies that I just described earlier in terms of controlling authentication and authorization is all available to you when you use Active Directory Federation services to pre-authenticate. Now, it automatically picks up what are the set of applications that are available. In this case, I'm going to take a sample application, my Who Am I application, and there are some simple things that I add, which is right. This is the external URL. Oh, it's a name, sorry. So I pick up a certificate that represents this. Let's just use my SharePoint cert. And a backend URL, which is what it is represented inside my firewall. And that pretty much does it. We helpfully tell you what the PowerShell was for it. And I'm done publishing this application. This makes the application available and accessible. And you can now control the policies associated with who gets authenticated and authorized to this application in Active Directory Federation services. Finally, we saw also the ability to access file-based data through work folders. So let me quickly walk you through what an experience is for this. Okay. Now, right now, I'm looking at the management console associated with the file server. And if I look at the work folder settings, work folders, again, provide you two modes of how you can authenticate end users and provide access to these files. It supports the ability to use your regular Windows-based authentication. In addition, it also supports Active Directory Federation services, which gives you the added benefit of multi-forest and the ability to think about multi-factor authentication as well as conditional access based on workplace joint devices. And finally, if I look at a share associated with work folders, now the simple aspect about it is that you can also define for a work folders share that you've set up, who are the people who get to sync their files onto the rest of the devices. In this case, the share was set up such that only Paul and Adam can actually be able to sync their files onto their devices using this share. And this gives you the ability to, let's say, within a team, let's say, within my team, the AD team, we have a file share that is set up just for all the folks in the AD team, and that's managed. Now, as a result, we can just set up a sync share for the AD team and restrict access to this file share only to members of the Active Directory team. So that concludes my presentation. We have a series of breakout sessions later this week associated with both thinking about empowering users, about driving device management in a unified manner, as well as protecting access to resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. So just by way of a recap, I wanted to take you through some of the capabilities that we covered today. And so just from a delivery point of view, know that the R2 preview bits for the on-premises releases, so Windows Server, Config Manager, they're available today. And we'll be shipping all of these products by the end of this calendar year. So as you think about the new capabilities, just a quick recap. Consistent company portal experiences, not just for Windows, RT, and phone, but also across iOS and Android. You saw simplified registration and enrollment, automatic VPNs. You've got the unification of Intune with your existing on-premises PC management environment with Config Manager, comprehensive settings management, and then a full set of data protection technologies that Sam just took you through. So that's the end of our session today. I've just given you a quick snapshot here of some of the other sessions that are coming up on the WCA track, diving into ConfigMan, diving into the unification with Intune, work folders, VPN, web app proxy, etc. So a full set of sessions that hopefully you will take advantage of while you're here in Madrid. We also have information online in the usual spots on Microsoft.com, and then a range of resources on Channel 9, TechNet, MS Learning, and MSDN. these sessions will be available on demand on Channel 9 after they've been presented. And I would ask you, if you can, to also complete your evaluations. So I'd like to thank you for spending the hour with us today, at least at the overview level in this foundation session. I'd like to thank all of our demoers, and please enjoy the rest of the show, Madrid and Spain. Thank you.